When life equals suffering, and suffering either has or has no meaning, then everyone will eventually just lead to nihilism, which means life has no meaning. To this, the band-aid is Nietzsche's ubermensch, which is you create the meaning. What's up, Artemers? I hope everyone is doing well today. It is nearly 90 degrees in my area, so oh my gosh. Today we're going to be talking about suffering. What is it? And what do I mean when I say that life is suffering? The first thing that I have to say is thank you for all of your wonderful support and encouragement. If I didn't write back to you, know that I probably still read whatever you wrote. I know a lot of people had a really fun discussions in the Reddit thread, so that was a blast. You've wrinkled my brain, and I just wish I had more time. What I wanted to address today was some comments that were kind of frustrated with my conclusion of the ultimate question. What I want to add here is that this isn't necessarily my conclusion as much of a shared conclusion between Buddhism or Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, Schopenhauer, and Nietzsche, as well as myself, but that is besides the point. What I wanted to explain is why I used life is suffering as a basis to the entire answer of what is the meaning to life, the universe, and everything.
All I'm doing is suffering. Why are you suffering? I'm trying to make life changes. Why can't you just change without the suffering? I don't know.
And I do mean it when I say that the meaning to life, the universe, and everything is suffering, while at the same time, whatever you want it to be. To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. Nietzsche. And so this is the entire framework of the philosophy that I used in my last video, and so I have to thank the amazing contributor on Reddit for sharing that quote with me. It pretty much just put it all together in just a few words. Another quote from Nietzsche that I would love to share with you guys today is, "We have art in order not to die of the truth." Nietzsche. I am extremely excited to get to the art of it all, but I think what's really important is to talk about the truth. What is the truth? Why is life suffering? Why is that the truth? Not necessarily why as much of an explanation of what it is. The plain and simple answer as to why life is suffering is because we have the same human experience and human condition across everyone, every single person across the entire capitalistic hierarchy. And that's awesome, realistically, when you think about it. No one is endowed with any sort of advantage that we know, so. To spill the tea for us today, the tip top of the iceberg that we're going to start with is the simple phrase, YOLO. I'm pretty sure a different philosopher than Nietzsche said something very similar to YOLO, which Zac Efron then took and popularized via a tattoo. But the main thing here is you only live once. You have one life.
You can't live or exist in a fear-based state and thrive in the wild. I'm gonna sink into dark places, no question. But if I want to be a part of an expansive path of self-growth, I have to sink into those places. Once you're down there and then you come back up, oh, so good. The growth is so good. You know, I mean, it's so worth it, and I'm so ready.
Nietzsche directs a lot of his attention towards Christianity and religions that are very similar. And this is because religions like this can push the meaning of our suffering to places like our afterlife, via heaven or hell, or anything like that. This does include reincarnation, but we are not going to get into that today. Basically, spoiler alert, what we're going to be talking about next is to get you out of reincarnation, so that just kind of solves that whole puzzle. But when you think about things like going to the afterlife and the meaning of our suffering being something that will lead us towards a better afterlife, this is a form of life denial. And when Nietzsche says the truth is that we need to affirm our one life. And this includes the fact that our suffering that we endure only carries meaning in this life. A lot of Nietzsche's feelings can be seen throughout his entire books, including the title of his book, The Antichrist, as well as his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche wrote, God is dead. All the gods are dead, and thus lives the ubermensch. Pretty much, if we don't have the ubermensch, what do we have? Please check out the article on my blog that has a full explanation as to why I believe Nietzsche's ubermensch and Siddhartha Gautama's Buddha are very much so the same sort of philosophy. It is written in 4 digestible sections that explains all of the philosophies using Thus Spoke Zarathustra and uses Nietzsche's thoughts on tarantulas and the preachers of death. And I actually had a comment on Reddit who was all like, I'm feeling a lot of preachers of death over here. And I'm just like, you know what's up. Alright, so getting past the waterline of our truth iceberg today, we are going to be talking majorly about Siddhartha Gautama and his philosophies in Buddhism. Siddhartha Gautama is also known as Gautama Buddha, as well as the founder of Buddhism. To start in chronological order, I'm going to start with the 4 sites. To start this story, I want to say that Siddhartha Gautama was a prince who lived in a castle where he was pretty much subjected to stay there until a happenstance when he was 29. And this is contested to say either happened by choice or by the push of his father, where he actually made everything much cleaner and beautified the whole city. In either case, he left with his charioteer named Shanna, and in this journey he saw 4 sights. The first sight is aging, where Siddhartha Gautama saw an old man aging, to where I guess no one else in the castle was very old. And Siddhartha asked his charioteer, "What's up?" And Shanna is all like, "This is something that is inevitable and happens to all people." They continue their journey. The next sight that Siddhartha sees is someone sick, a sick man / illness / disease. And Siddhartha asks his charioteer again, "What's going on? What is this?" And again, Shanna says, "This is something that happens to all people in life." And the journey carries on. The next sight is where Siddhartha sees a dead body. Very confused, I'm sure. And he asks again, and Shanna says again, "This is something that happens to all people, every single person." What are you going to do? Next comes the 4th and final sight, where Siddhartha Gautama sees an ascetic monk and sees that he is finding a life beyond suffering. And Siddhartha finds hope in life.
To be resilient, to stay calm in situations, I think that's a very, very important skill when it comes to survival. When you lose patience, you start to make mistakes.
A little backstory for you. This would have been 29 years before, where Siddhartha was born with a birthmark on his foot. And a psychic told the king he is either going to be the greatest leader politically or religiously. And this is why the king confined Siddhartha to the castle all his life, so he would never find religion. Sorry, Dad, still happen. So, moving on, Siddhartha decides to leave the castle. And he was living in a complete life of luxury, of course. He had women all around him. I believe he had a wife and children. You can correct me if that happened later. So it was roughly the next morning when Siddhartha left the castle of luxury and complete, everything being given to him, which I'm sure is suffering in its own right, honestly. But he joins a church and becomes a yogi and meditates and meditates and meditates, and finds that it's not right for him. It's not doing the right thing for him. He even tries to starve himself to see if fasting would work. Fasting would be a better word than starving. But this doesn't work either. There has to be a middle way. No one's reaching nirvana. No one's becoming enlightened. So he moved on and decided to meditate on it, ironically. Under a tree, famously a gigantic, beautiful tree, many paintings on it. He was meditating, until one day a girl brings him a bowl of rice. And he realizes enlightenment. That's when he finds the middle way. Honestly, I guess I backed it up and took it back for a minute. But yeah, he eats food and realizes there is a middle way. And he teaches his first ceremony with the Four Noble Truths.
I need to stop dwelling on, well, I wish I would have changed that, or I wish that this would have happened, or whatever, and start realizing that I did a pretty damn good job, and my kids love me for it, and they turned out good, and move on. Now there's a new aspect of my life, and that means paying more attention to my wife, and stop being so damn sad about having to go to work all the time. It's just part of life. Look forward to the little things in life.
So I have to add an asterisk here and say I'm terribly sorry if my pronunciation of the Sanskrit words are terrible. I'm trying my best, but I've only really studied French. So correct me if I'm wrong. So the Four Noble Truths are as follows. Dukkha. This is suffering. Samudaya. This is the origin of suffering. Nirodha. This is cessation of suffering. And Magga. This is the path toward the cessation of suffering. I went over this very briefly in my last video, and a few people corrected me toward Buddha didn't say life is suffering. And I have to agree. The real thing that Buddha said is like this long, and in truth, Sanskrit words don't translate very well to English. The word has been translated to suffering, but more recently, translators have preferred to use the word dukkha rather than the word suffering because it only allows people to perceive negative things. And this has been found especially towards Western learners. What are you gonna do? So yes, life is not necessarily suffering in the exact semantic sort of way, but it is. And we're going to talk about that. Pretty much the rest of this video, we're really going to be honing in on the first of the Noble Truths, which is dukkha, or this is suffering. Life is suffering. It's pretty much been translated into 100 different ways, like I've said. And so to explain this, I want to first say that dukkha means that we live in an ordinary world where we are destined to cling onto things that will change, and that change is inevitable, and we will just always suffer from this.
The hardest part for me, I think, is just going to be the process of being alone. I think as human beings, we desire companionship and we desire community.
Realistically, we all live in a state of suffering in passing stages or not, because without being a Buddha, we are attached to things that will change. And we will always be unsatisfied with the fact that things are temporary, pretty much. And like Schopenhauer says, we go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and we're never satisfied. We're just not. And that's why life is suffering. Even though we have periods of pleasure, it's a glimpse. It's just for a second. To quote Schopenhauer from his World as Will and Idea, now the nature of man consists in this, that his will strives, is satisfied and strives anew, and so on forever. Indeed, his happiness and well-being consists simply in the quick transition from wish to satisfaction, and from satisfaction to a new wish, for the absence of satisfaction is suffering. The empty longing for a new wish, languor, ennui. So why is life suffering? Because we desire things that will eventually go away, and therefore true happiness isn't attainable. To me, this is a comforting fact, and I guess to all Buddhists, it's a comforting fact and truth. Once you understand that everything that you love will change, will die, will go away, will change in some way, and then we can appreciate that, appreciate the change, appreciate whatever happens as that's what life is, then we're doomed to be unsatisfied and suffering forever.
What I've really discovered about myself is that I have to focus on what my wife talks about all the time. Just stop worrying about the fact that you're grinding away and working, and just think about the little things in life. And what I've come, and I've always known this, but my family is frickin' awesome. And I need to start showing my appreciation for that.
And unless you're a total Buddha, completely enlightened, life is suffering. Plain and simple. I'm sorry to spill the tea, but like, sometimes you just need to change your perspective on things and find that in the suffering you find today, maybe it's to build something better tomorrow. I'm not sure how to transition here, but I do want to read for us today Siddhartha Gautama's First Noble Truth from his book, Setting the Wheel of Dhamma in Motion. Now this because is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering, union with what is displeasing is suffering, separation from what is pleasing is suffering. Not to get what one wants is suffering. In brief, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging are suffering. The 5 aggregates subject to desire and suffering are form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. And what this basically means is that our bodies, our feelings, our minds, and largely the expectations that we hold are what keep us back, are what hold us back, are what subject us to desire. And this is dukkha.
I need to stop being such a half-empty kind of guy and be more half full, you know, a glass half full kind of guy, and just be more positive. When you're right at that point where you say, I did everything I can do, there's always a little bit more you can give. There's always a little bit more. You can dig always a little bit deeper. I'm digging deeper. I'm trying to dig as deep as I can possibly go. I'd rather go out swinging.
There are 3 variations of dukkha that can be seen throughout all of this, and these can be seen as the suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, and all pervasive suffering. And in Buddhist tradition, it is very important to understand what dukkha is and the 3 variations, as well as practice how to understand not to be desireful, which can lead to suffering every day. It is an everyday practice. In this everyday practice, dukkha is one of 3 marks of existence and being, and the other 2 include the non-self as well as impermanence. And this means that our souls are subject to impermanence, which is non-stable. It will change. It's chaotic. And that's what the other one means as well. The largest takeaway to pull from here in these philosophies is that if we understand something as solid and stable, this is wrong. And that is why life is suffering. And we do this every day, every day. It's pretty much called making plans, having high hopes, depending on something too much, realistically. Expectations can leave you dreary. I don't know how else to say it.
This place just, it changes so rapidly. And sometimes it'll toy with it, you know, it'll look like it's about to rain and it won't. And then you're looking, thinking, okay, well, I need to do this, so I'm gonna get up. And then about the time you stick a toe out the door, rain, then a blizzard. It's just, wow, who can keep up?
The way I live my life, I try my best not to expect anything, but I work super hard for everything that I do. It's a very strange balance, and the whole balance between Buddhism and living in everyday society is something that Buddhists have discussed and thought about and meditated on for centuries. How does it work? I think a big joke that nihilists make, especially on hashtag subreddit nihilism, is, why was I born? I didn't ask to be born. And I think this almost perfectly encapsulates all of Decca in that no one did. No one did ever. This is an inescapable truth. Birth is inescapable. You've already done it. Death is inescapable. It's gonna happen. Illness is pretty much inescapable. But I guess, like, if you have literally the best immune system in the entire world, you could get away your whole life, probably just getting a cold. But you still got that cold. Yeah, and then aging is absolutely inescapable in, like, a serious sense. As time moves, we cannot change the fact that time moves. This is the tea. These are the truths of life that we can't live without, basically. I want to leave us today on a fun note from Nietzsche's Genealogy of Morality. The hypnotic feeling of nothingness, the repose of deepest sleep, in short, absence of suffering. This may be counted as the highest good, the value of values, by the suffering and by those who are deeply depressed. And it has to be valued positively by them and found to be positive itself. Nothingness. Without it, we have nothing.
That's some of the cultures of natives they found. They mastered the art of doing nothing. Really, they were efficient. They did what they needed to on a just most base level to stay warm. They ate enough to keep them going, and they didn't burn that food energy up. When you look at life, everything is energy. We're energy. We're a ball of electric energy.
The truth is that we have to suffer. Without it is nothingness. In nothingness, we can be positive, and we can find this in a lot of different things. Some people find nothingness in meditation. What I would like to talk about, art. A lot of people find a beautifully sublime meditation in art. As both the artist as well as the taker, inner eye seer, I forget the word, where people can escape from themselves and escape from their own personal desires. And I would love to talk more about this. I need research. I need so much research on art. I feel like I could talk about it, but without any sort of, like, quotes or research. So I'm just gonna leave it here. If you guys have anything for me, please, 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 I would love to get your thoughts and feelings. If you are a Nietzschean like myself, I would love for you to leave a comment and tell me what your favorite book or line or philosophy was. I do have sort of a series in mind for what we should be talking about, but if you want to steer me in any direction, I would not mind at all. So I'm so glad that you decided to stop by today, and I hope to see you in the comments so we can chat. And if I don't get to your comment and chat with you, I'm so sorry. I got a full-time job, I work a lot, and then I do videos, and then I read a whole book, and then, like, that's what I do in my spare time. Philosophize. Have a great rest of your night. I hope I didn't depress anyone spilling the tea over here. I live with it every day. It's up here, so if you have to live with it, I think maybe it's for the better. You only have one life. All the suffering you have in it only has one meaning. Not one meaning. It only has meaning in this life. So make the most out of it. Make the most out of it. That's not even depressing. I don't know how so many people thought the last video was depressing, so I'm really sorry if you did think so, but you're not alone. Come chat. Have a great day, and go eat your dinner. I love you.
Oh, this is just a snack that I made for you. For one of these days that will never end, that you seem to spend for hours on end, switching back and forth, 10-inch, 67-inch, 4-inch, 4K, 1080p. You're wasting your time, not making friends. You don't understand, where did they all go? Now what you have to say is stuff I already know, 'cause someone flipped himself and is talking you through, so don't feel alone. Baby, come on, let us back up back and listen to the mountain. I wish I could go back to the 1900s. I wish I could go back to the 1900s. You're barely in your 20s, but you're already bit out.